Sony isn't giving up on PSN account requirement for PC games. Company president says it's necessary so people can safely play its games. You heard me right, guys. Playing your games offline is dangerous for players, and it puts you at an even greater risk for exploitation. I think most people just want to play these games, and they don't really care what hoops these companies make them jump through. I also don't think that the average gamer is really concerned with the broader issue of being forced to sign up for these third-party launchers. By forcing players to sign up for the PlayStation Network, not only do they lock in an online requirement, but they actually make their customers' data more vulnerable. Not only that, but then they have the audacity to say that it's not only for your safety, but you're only complaining because it's inconvenient. Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Hard Light Network. So I would say that many of us probably remember the weeks-long controversy that was created by Sony's PlayStation Network requirement, a requirement that ultimately ended up in numerous games being delisted from hundreds of different countries, and one that also, essentially, forces players to maintain an online connection if they want to enjoy the games that they've purchased. However, what you may not be aware of is that Sony's new company president, Hiroki Totoki, has doubled down on this sentiment, not only stating that the PSN requirement is not going anywhere, but that it's also necessary to keep gamers safe. You heard me right, guys. Playing your games offline is dangerous for players, and it puts you at an even greater risk for exploitation. At least, that's the line that Sony is choosing to run with. And I know that it sounds ridiculous on its face, but we certainly have the writing to back it up. But before we get into today's article, guys, I wanted to remind you to please hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any further content that we have prepared for you guys. Also, hit that comment section down below with your opinion, and if you wanted to go that extra mile, there is a super thanks option down below. But without any further ado, let's get into this article. One that comes to us from our friends over at PC Gamer and is entitled, "Sony Isn't Giving Up on PSN Account Requirement for PC Games. Company president says it's necessary so people can safely play its games." And it begins as follows. It's fair to say that Sony's insistence on requiring a PlayStation Network account for PC versions of its games is not widely popular. Don't expect Sony to back off on it anytime soon, though. Speaking in today's investors call, Sony President, Chief Operating Officer, and Chief Financial Officer Hiroki Totoki said PSN integration is necessary in order to ensure everyone can safely enjoy its games. And bear with me, because this dude talks like an actual robot. Quote, "We have learned a lot," Totoki said. "The way to face the issues regarding PC, for instance, the PlayStation accounts that we have offered, by offering them, for instance, sometimes that tends to invite pushback. But for the live service games, in order to maintain order of the gaming, so that anybody can enjoy the game safely, we need to create an environment conducive to that. And, of course, enjoying the game freely. Having some restrictions, we may not call it a rule, but to ask users and gamers to follow the manner, and that balance is very important. We have to continue to seek the best way to achieve this." The quote was translated from Japanese to English on the fly by a human translator, to be clear, and is a little rough, but the point is clear enough. Sony wants to maintain some kind of control over its games, and the PSN requirement is seen as the best way to do that. And maybe it is, but it's also tremendously unpopular with PC gamers. The most obvious example of that is Helldivers 2, which launched without a PSN requirement because of, quote, technical issues, and enjoyed tremendous success until May, when Sony announced that the PSN-free grace period was over. The blowback was furious, to the point that Sony was forced to back down, although not after first trying to power through it, and doing untold damage to the goodwill Helldivers 2 had enjoyed up to that point. Any thought that Sony might drop the idea completely went out the window very quickly, though. Just weeks after the Helldivers 2 blow-up, Ghost of Tsushima's PC port was delisted on Steam in nearly 200 countries because of a PSN requirement for its newly added multiplayer mode. Shortly after that, Sony confirmed that God of War Ragnarok would also require a PSN login. In October, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered came to Steam with the same requirement attached. That makes Totoki's comments a little tough to swallow at face value. He talked about live service games specifically, and fair enough, if you want to use our servers, you have to play by our rules, is a reasonable ask, but God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Zero Dawn are single-player games, so what's the need for a PSN account there? PlayStation Network accounts are free to set up, and once that's done, your accounts are linked, and you shouldn't have to think about it again. So it's not the most onerous task ever, but it is a hassle, and I can readily understand and share the sentiment that we have enough of that to deal with already. Some publishers seem to recognize that fact. I think BioWare vocally making the point that Dragon Age the Veilguard can be played entirely offline with no linked accounts required, but Sony is clearly going hard in the other direction. Maybe that's the right strategy for a mega publisher. I remember being pretty pissed off myself when I had to sign up for this new Steam thing just so I could play Half-Life 2, and we all know how that turned out. There are also signs that gamers are getting used to it, or at least are getting tired of fighting about it. God of War Ragnarok ate a big pile of negative reviews when it launched on Steam, but it has since climbed to a very positive overall rating. And while Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered isn't faring quite as well, it also came to the party with a number of bugs and crash issues. Sony wasn't able to enforce its will on Helldivers 2, but I think in the big picture there's a good chance gamers will throw in the towel long before Sony does. And as much as I hate to admit it, I definitely think that's probably going to be the case as well. While Helldivers 2 is definitely an indicator that gamers actually have the power to affect the industry, I don't feel like the average gamer has the concern or the stamina to deal with this problem in the long term. I think most people just want to play these games and they don't really care what hoops these companies make them jump through. I also don't think that the average gamer is really concerned with the broader issue of being forced to sign up for these third-party launchers. Another big problem that I'm seeing with this discourse is this argument about convenience. To me, this argument comes across as more of an attempt to poison the well than actually represent what people's problems with being forced to sign up for the PlayStation Network actually is. Personally, I have seen exactly 0 people mention how it's inconvenient, and more people seem to be concerned about the accessibility and security elements of it. I think it's absolutely laughable that the CEO can say with a straight face that it's about security when Sony has been hacked multiple times in 2011, 2014, and even as recently as 2023. By forcing players to sign up for the PlayStation Network, not only do they lock in an online requirement, but they actually make their customers' data more vulnerable. Not only that, but then they have the audacity to say that it's not only for your safety, but you're only complaining because it's inconvenient. If anything, it's probably more inconvenient to fight against Sony on this issue than it is to simply sign up for the PlayStation Network. Whether it's older gamers or younger gamers, after dealing with day-to-day responsibilities, most people just want to come home and unwind, and it's easier for them to create a PlayStation Network account one time and forget about it than it is to worry about the greater consequences on the industry. But again, I do think it's interesting that they decided to take the liberty versus security approach in this argument. If Benjamin Franklin was alive today, he definitely would be against Sony's practices here, and he would have signed the Stop Killing Games initiative for sure. But of course, the final point that I want to make is about accessibility. As I mentioned earlier in the article, over 200 countries had games delisted because of this PSN requirement. This decision baffles me, and it's insane on multiple fronts, because not only is Sony cutting their potential customer base by tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people by denying service to multiple countries, they're also damaging the longevity of these titles. I don't know how you get outperformed by BioWare and Dragon Age the Veilguard, but it seems like the only good decision that they made was allowing the game to be played entirely offline. However, apart from my concerns about security, and apart from the issues of accessibility that this is inevitably going to cause, the most insulting part of this discussion by far is the absolute lack of concern for the customer that Sony has. Gaming used to be a creative and community-oriented industry, but now Chairman Totoki is talking about how your data needs to be accessed by this company for your security without even telling you the reason why. And the most blackpilling part about the whole thing is that gamers are so beaten down by these practices over the last couple decades that they're just going to roll over and accept it. Younger gamers simply aren't concerned about the issues of signing over their data to these massive companies, and older gamers are simply too tired. But that's going to end yet another depressing episode of Game Industry News. Thank you guys for watching up to this point, and if you can, please do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the content we've got coming up for you guys. And also, please let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you guys agree with my concerns, or do you feel like I'm overreacting? Could you care less about the situation, or do you actually agree with Sony's decision? Either way, let me know what you think, and as always, thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, leave a like, and until next time, love you guys, safe travels.